Now, our first speaker today is Makana Chai, clearly a woman of many talents and experiences. I first saw her on TV talking about well-being and stress management. Then I read her book, Fit in a Bit, which is now entitled Mindful Multitasking. That book was a prize in last week's class. The book gave me a number of interesting actions and thoughts I could use. Plus, Makana loves to laugh. And so I am delighted that she's here today to share expertise about how we can be healthy and happy. And she's going to talk instead of using a PowerPoint so she can have your full attention. So please give a warm welcome to Makana.
Thank you, Virginia. Today I'd like to answer 3 questions you probably have in mind. Number 1, what is mindful multitasking? Number 2, how can you use it so that you can live a healthier, happier, stress-free life? And number 3, you're probably wondering, how did someone like me, who's obviously not local, get a Hawaiian first name and a Chinese last name? So let's answer that most important question first. 20 years ago, I had a company in Silicon Valley. I was traveling around the country as an attorney doing programs on preventing sexual harassment. It didn't work, obviously. I still do those programs. But I was working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. I loved my work, but I was always tired. So my best friend, who was a nurse, said I should see a doctor. But I didn't have time for that. One day, I was working late, and I collapsed, was taken to the hospital, and a few days later, the cardiologist diagnosed me with a congenital heart defect, made worse by my stressful lifestyle, my lack of exercise, and being overweight by 50 pounds. He said, change your life or you will die. Now, my brothers had moved to Hawaii about 20 years before, and I'd always wanted to live here. So I thought, well, if I'm gonna die, I might as well die in Hawaii. My first week here, my brother said, you should meet the mother of a friend of mine. She's a kupuna, a native Hawaiian elder. The next day I met her, and she immediately hanai'd me, or adopted me, into her family. And a few weeks later, she gave me the name Makana, which means gift, because she said I was a gift to her family. But a few minutes after I met Tutu, she said, are you married? I said, no. She said, I have a son you should meet. And here he is, Mark Chai. Who is a well-known artist. He was just in Honolulu Magazine last month. So I've been very blessed to become part of that family and to be here. But ever since the doctor told me to stop being stressed, I've been learning about stress. And I have shared it with people because my background is I am a speaker and a trainer. And I want to share it because also it reminds me of all the things that I forgot to do. And about 2 years ago, I was speaking to a group of bankers talking about stress management for busy people. I was telling them that to reduce their stress, they needed to take time to relax. They need to take time to exercise. They even need to take time to meditate. The students started laughing at me. They said, we don't have time. We have jobs. We have families. We commute. Well, driving home that night, I thought, what can I do to help these folks? And the thought came to me, well, you can meditate while you're driving. Now, don't close your eyes. But meditation is just breathing and focusing your attention. And that was the seed that gave me the idea for the book, mindful multitasking. So turn to page 2 in your materials. Mindful multitasking is doing exercises while you're doing something else you normally do. So it takes no extra time. This is not the old idea of parking further away from the store, which is great, but it takes more time. These literally take no extra time. And I'm not just talking about physical exercise, because we all know in order to live a healthy, happy life, we also need to exercise our minds, right? We need to engage emotionally with others, have social connection. And the medical research shows that the people who live the longest, healthiest, happiest lives have some kind of regular practice of connecting with something bigger than themselves, whether they call that God, nature, or oneness. So, for example, a physical exercise, something that you can do while you're waiting for the toaster or the microwave, is you can do squats. Like this. How many of you remember the first person who ever did exercises on TV, Jack LaLanne? Jack LaLanne said the most important exercise we can do as we get older is squats. Because he said, as long as you can do squats, you can get on the toilet. And as long as you can get on the toilet, you're not disabled. Another thing that we can do anytime we're sitting or standing is have good posture. Okay, everybody kind of adjust now. It's an exercise, right? To keep doing that. And it's good for our internal organs and for lots of other reasons. An example of a mental exercise is something you're doing right this minute. You're learning. So that's good for our mental exercise, especially if you take notes, because now you've got that physical going with it. Another mental exercise to kind of keep a positive attitude is to listen to less news and do anything else besides listen to news. Less news and more music. Or less news and more comedy. How many of you have listened to comedy in the last week? A few people, that's great. Who are your favorite comedians? Jeannie Robertson, I love Jeannie Robertson. Who else? Trevor Noah, yeah. Stephen Colbert. Jimmy Kimmel? What? Bill Maher. How about some old folks, some old people from our youth? Who are your favorite comedians back in the day? Oh, you can't remember their names. Okay. Bob Newhart, Bob Hope, Johnny Carson, Jack Benny, Carol Burnett, Red Skelton. All of these people are on YouTube. So you can go on YouTube, just put their name in the search box, and it'll bring up all their old routines. And then on the right side is clips of other comedians, and so you might find other comedians that you like or you had forgotten about. So those are examples of mental exercises. Now for an emotional exercise, you can, emotional is about connecting with people. And one of the most important things we can do to connect with people is to forgive. To forgive. So there may be someone that you haven't talked to in decades that you might need to forgive. Or maybe someone you live with who sometimes can be extremely annoying. All the married couples are nudging each other right now. So something you can do, a practice to forgive, is when you take a shower. Now, you don't have to take a shower with them. But as you're taking a shower and you're cleansing your body, you can cleanse your relationship. And just say silently, I forgive you, and then say their name. I forgive you, over and over again. So that's an emotional exercise. Another example of an emotional exercise I learned from a professor at Harvard who said, we should notice one new thing about our loved ones every day. Now, I said that recently, and someone said, does it have to be a positive thing? I think so. Someone in another group, because I was saying, I'm not sure if that's possible to notice one new thing. And she said, well, what if you appreciate one thing about that person every day? So perhaps that's a better way of doing it. And then spiritual exercises could be, for example, anytime you're outside, just walking from the car to the house, that you look up and savor and have that awe feeling. The research shows when we have that awe feeling, it engages the same part of the brain that's engaged when we meditate or experience transcendent prayer. So you can savor the color of the sky, the shape of the clouds, the rainbows. Now, last time I was here, I met a woman who was blind, and she asked me to come and speak to blind people, and I've done it now 3 times. And when I was talking about this, I realized all of my examples were visual. So I asked them, how do you have that awe feeling? So someone said the warmth of the sun. Someone said the sound of the ocean. And then another woman said the smell of donuts. So whatever it is, just savor that moment. It doesn't take any extra time. Well, I'll give you some more examples in a bit, but I want to talk just a little bit about, how do you know this can work for you? So on page 3 of your materials, you see a list of activities that you probably do every day or every week. Lying in bed, sitting at the computer, watching TV. So all of these are times when you can be doing things. And then on the next page is a place where you can take notes. It lists physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and I'll kind of be going among all of those. But what is the research? Everything I share with you is supported by decades of medical research. So we know these things work. Now people ask, well, is it as good as doing 30 minutes of exercise 6 times a week, which is optimal? First, let me ask you, how many of you do 30 minutes of exercise, including walking, 6 times a week? Let's see a show of hands. All right, give yourselves a hand. That is awesome. How many of you do some kind of exercise, maybe not 30 minutes, maybe not 60 times a week, but at least once a week, you do something? Let's see a show of hands. Great, that's wonderful. So for those of you who aren't doing 30 minutes, this can add to your time. For those of you who are doing 30 minutes, a lot of this is cross-training. You might not be doing squats. You might not be balancing. As we get older, balance is so important. And the only way you can balance is by balancing. So you don't have to do that, but you can just take your foot off the floor 1/4 of an inch while you're standing in line at Safeway. You've got the cart right there. So, if you feel yourself off balance, you'll still have something to hold on to, but you can practice your balance. So recent research has found that 30 minutes 6 times a week is optimal, but you don't necessarily have to do it in a 30-minute chunk. You could do 3 10-minute periods. And they didn't test it, but why not do 31-minute periods, But for example, you could go for a walk for 10 minutes, and then you could do 10 minutes of squats and balancing and lunges and push-ups while you're watching TV, waiting for the toaster. And then you can do I know. But how many of you are like me where I feel I have to give hours to doing housework, so I do all my housework at once, and then I'm exhausted. Okay, you're smarter than me, so you're shaking your heads. No, we don't do that. But here's what we can do. We could do 10 minutes of housework every day, and then it's part of our exercise routine. So one idea is to do what I call the vacuum salsa. Because most of us, I think, when we vacuum, we just use our arm. So it's one-sided. It can actually strain our arm. We're not really getting any exercise. But if instead we hold the vacuum like this, and then we move our feet and your hips while you're at it, now you're getting exercise. Anyone here ever do hula? A few people. You can practice your hula steps. And now you're getting a half squat in it too. So those are all things that you can do to get that 30 minutes of exercise. But one fellow said, well, what are your metrics? How do I know that this is going to work for me? Well, if you start off by doing one push-up and you work your way up to 10, that's progress. If you're listening to less news and more music, that's progress. Or listen to less news and listen to silence. That's progress. If you are spending more time singing, that's progress. So you can track your time. And then we can get feedback. Maybe that annoying person you live with tells you that you're not as annoying as you used to be. Because, of course, we're all annoying, right? Or you get feedback from other people. I ran into a friend I hadn't seen in a year after I'd been doing this for about a year, and she said, oh my gosh, you look healthier, happier, and younger. That's progress. And then strangers can give you feedback. After I'd been doing this for about a year, 3 men tried to pick me up. Now, granted, they were all in their 80s. But I'm 65. I never thought at this age I'd be a hot young thing. And actually, last time I was here, a woman said, well, I'm 84 and men are still trying to pick me up. I don't know if that's a benefit or a detriment. I'm not, but at least it's positive feedback. So there is medical research, and you will find that it's helpful. So let's come up with a few more physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual exercises. My favorite exercise is deep breathing. Deep breathing, or what the scientists call diaphragmatic breathing. And the reason it's my favorite is because it's actually physical, it's mental, it helps clear our minds. It's emotional, can help us calm down and connect better with others. And it can be spiritual, it can connect us with the divine. So I'm going to talk a little bit about diaphragmatic breathing, and then we'll practice it. So the essence of it is to use our abs on the exhale, to pull our bellies in. But the nice thing is then you get to release your belly as it wants to be, right? So the reason we want to pull our bellies in is because that moves the diaphragm. That's why it's called diaphragmatic breathing. And when we move the diaphragm, it engages the vagus nerve. Some of the guys just woke up. Vagus. It's V-A-G-U-S, but there is a jackpot if you do this. So the vagus nerve is our parasympathetic nervous system. It's the fight, flight, or freeze response. So if we're stressed, then that nerve is not working. But if we're calm, then it's working. So if we pull our bellies in, it moves the diaphragm and engages that nerve. And we feel more calm and relaxed. Now, I mentioned meditating while driving. And I was talking about this with a group, and a guy said, I can't meditate while I'm driving. I'm surrounded by idiots, morons, and wackos. If you think you're surrounded by bad drivers, how are you going to feel? Stressed, right? And if you're stressed, physiologically, your vision narrows, your hearing decreases, and you don't think as well. So now you're driving like a wacko. So breathing helps us be better drivers as well as calm us down. So there are thousands of exercises that we can do for breathing. This particular one I'm going to share with you is we breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, and we emphasize the exhale. And I actually learned that part of it when I moved to Hawaii, because I grew up in California. So, of course, I had to go to all the hippie workshops. And at the hippie workshops, they always tell you to take a deep breath. So I go, they'd say, take another deep breath. Take another deep breath. I can't take any more deep breaths. What am I missing? The exhale. So when I moved to Hawaii, I learned the Hawaiian word for breath, which is ha, and literally it means exhale. I realized if I exhale as much air as possible, my body will naturally take in a nice big inhale. So I'm going to walk you through this, but if I'm going too fast or too slow, just do it on your own. We'll just do 3 and see if you can really pull your belly in on that exhale. So you're letting your belly out on the inhale, and then you're pulling your belly in on the exhale. So let's start with an exhale. So just exhale through your mouth. Keep exhaling as much as you can. Pull your belly in, and then inhale. And exhale. Keep exhaling as much as you can. Pull your belly in. Inhale. And exhale. This is the last one. Really exhale. Pull your belly in. And inhale. And relax. That's it. Your blood pressure just went down. Your blood sugar is normalized. You have more oxygen in your brain, so you're thinking better. And obviously, the more you do it, the more benefits that you have. So I encourage you to do this at any time, and you don't have to make noise and be obvious about it. Do you ever get email and just seeing the name of the person who's sending the email stresses you out a little bit? I don't know why this is a universal experience. So what do you do in that situation? Did somebody say delete it? Yeah, everybody's favorite answer, delete it. Yeah, sometimes it's from your family and you can't really delete it. But what you can do is take 3 deep breaths before you even read it. And then maybe what you do as an emotional exercise is rather than writing back, you call them or go see them, because it's a whole different conversation, isn't it, when we have that one-on-one. So breathing. So you can breathe when you're driving and just focus your attention on positive things. And this one's not supported by medical science, but I'm pretty sure when we breathe and when we're calm, I think it radiates out to the other drivers. That's the hippie part of me. And the other thing about breathing and tightening the abs, of course, you can tighten your abs at any time, whether you're breathing or not. Well, I mean, hopefully you're breathing, but whether you're deep breathing or not is tightening your abs and tightening your kegels, the muscles of your pelvic floor. That's something you can practice all the time. And the great thing about tightening your abs and your kegels is it reduces low back pain. It reduces incontinence. And it improves your sex life, if you have one. At least that's what I've heard. Another thing we can do when we're driving, we talked about forgiveness earlier. If someone almost cuts you off, you might swear at that moment, But then you can recover and say to yourself or out loud, I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. I kind of feel like the Queen of England when I do that. I forgive you. Now, emotional exercises. So emotional is about connecting. How many of you like to talk on the phone with loved ones who are elsewhere? How many of you like to take walks? How about combining the two? For some reason, it's easy for me to take walks, but not as easy to remember to call people. But if I think, okay, I'm going to walk with my mom, who lives in California, so I'm going to call her. And you want to use, earbuds so you can keep your hands moving. You don't want to be holding the phone. But that's a great way to combine two things. And then maybe you can get them to walk too. And now you're both walking. So you're having a walk buddy, but you don't have to meet up. And it could be someone across town as well as somebody in another state. Another mental exercise is to be positive. So every day to say affirmations like, I am happy. Say that. Really? Let's try to do that with enthusiasm. I am happy. I am healthy. I am awesome. All right. So if we do that every day, our body believes it. And related to that is, again, an emotional, it's both mental and emotional, is to smile. Smile all the time. But especially when you're doing things you don't like to do. Like, I smile when I'm cleaning the cat box. So I'd like everybody to smile at me right now. Give me your best smile. And then smile at the people on either side of you. Now, what would happen if you smiled at everybody you met in the street or on the store? Some people say they would think you were crazy, and some people say they would smile back. And I think that's usually what happens. And then a lot of times when we have that connection, and this is old advice, the Buddha said, a gift we can give another is to smile warmly into their eyes. So when we smile into someone's eyes and they smile back, sometimes we can have a conversation. I was in the store, grocery store, and I had stopped at the end of the aisle with my cart, so I was blocking the aisle. And a local guy came around the corner, and we smiled at each other, and I said, oh, let me get out of your way. He said, no, you go. I said, I can't go, I have to think. He said, oh, you cannot walk and think at the same time. No. I got out of the way and he went on. But that moment, our lives were enriched. And your lives were enriched as I shared that with you. So smiling and laughing with others is something that we can do. Well, I'd like to do a few more physical things. Let's see. Oh, let me say one more about mental. This actually does take more time, so I apologize for that. But there's a common misconception that as we get older, we need less sleep. It's not true. We need just as much sleep, 7 to 8 hours, as we ever needed. Granted, it's harder to do it, but we need it. And it's especially important, well, for two reasons. Number one, it does make you look younger, so we need all the help we can get. Oh, by the way, smiling also helps to keep everything up. But the other reason sleep's so important, as all the research is showing now, is that it helps prevent Alzheimer's. That we actually recover from the stresses or the trauma that can cause Alzheimer's while we're sleeping. So, sleep. If you have difficulty sleeping, on the last page of the handout is a link to my website, and there's a guided meditation there, and you can download it. or if you're like me, your niece or nephew can download it for you. And you can listen to that. And it's just a 12-minute guided meditation that walks you through breathing and relaxing. It was developed by Dr. Hans Selye, the physician who discovered stress, or the impact of stress back in the 1930s. And it's been clinically tested. But there's many that you can get online for free. So sleep. So I'd like to do a couple of physical exercises. And I'll invite you to participate, but let me demo first. How many of you have had a doctor tell you that you're getting shorter? Have any of you had that? And they usually say it's osteoporosis or osteopenia, that might be part of it. But what I noticed when I taught yoga and Pilates for 8 years to seniors is that they all had tight hamstrings. And the way you know if you have tight hamstrings is if you can't straighten your knees. If your knees are bent, I just reduce my height by an inch, right? But if I can keep my knees straight, then I'm taller. Plus, tight hamstrings cause low back pain. Low back pain, it hurts your posture, which then affects your internal organs. So it's really good to have nice lengthened hamstrings. So the way to do that, I like to do it when I'm brushing my teeth. So I do it 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes in the evening. And the thing about stretching any muscle is that it's better to do it a little bit every day than to do it once a week. It's just like a rubber band. If you take a rubber band and you go like this and try to stretch it all at once, it'll break, right? But if every day you stretch that band, over time, it'll get bigger and bigger. So most of us have a tendency to have posture like a cashew. Like this, okay? That's not good. So when we're doing our hamstring exercise, what we want to do is start like we are the number 1, the numeral 1. And then we want to become a 7. And the way we do that is by sticking out our butts, pushing our front towards the back, and keeping our back straight. Now my hamstrings are stretching. And the way you can tell your hamstrings are stretching is you'll feel it behind your knee. You'll feel a stretch behind your knee. So initially, you might only be able to go this far. And then over time, you're able to still keep, this is actually for me is where the stretch is because I've been practicing. So I'm over the basin, brushing my teeth, stretching my hamstrings twice a day. So why don't we try that? I invite you to stand up. Put your books down. And actually, before we do that, let's just stretch a little bit. So take your right hand and put it up and reach for the sky as much as you can. Feel the stretch in your ribs, in your side. And put it down. Then take your left hand and reach as high as you can. Ooh, that feels good. And then let's take both arms and reach. And then come down. And now shake it all out. Do the hokey pokey. Now roll your shoulders back, down, and around a couple of times. You know, this is so good, especially if you spend any time working on the computer. What the research says is we should spend as much time with our shoulders back as we do with them forward. So if you spend 5 hours on the computer, then you guys spend 5 hours like this. But this is a nice way to just get that position, is just rest your hands behind you, and it's opening up your chest. And then you add some deep breathing in there, and you've got a real exercise. But bring your hands to your side, and let's try this hamstring stretch. So bring your feet kind of together, not touching, but maybe hips width apart. And imagine that you're the number 1. Now you're going to stick out your butt, I should say rear end, it's a little nicer. Stick out your rear end, but you're not, okay, come back up. I see people going like this. So you want to make sure you keep your shoulders down and your low back is curved a little bit. So try again, and imagine you're pushing your front through your legs. So you're pushing out through your legs. And that looks better. Does anyone feel a stretch behind their knees? Some people say yes, some people say no. Come back up. So if you felt the stretch behind your knees, you're doing it right. If you didn't feel the stretch behind your knees, there's two options. One is you've got really great hamstrings and you don't have to stretch. It's always possible. Second, you're not doing it right. So I can work with you afterwards if you'd like a little help. But if you can get to that point where you're really keeping your back straight and your knees are straight, it will make a huge difference in how your back feels. Now, I'd like to do one other exercise while you're standing up. This is both a physical exercise, an emotional exercise, and a mental exercise. And let's say it's spiritual too. I'll just add that in. You can decide if it is. It's called laughter yoga. Have any of you heard of laughter yoga? There are clubs all over the world where people meet every morning to laugh. So just do what I do. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Ho 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 ho. Hee 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 hee. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ho 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 ho. Ha 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 ha. Turn to the people next to you and laugh at them. And that's your exercise for today. Have a seat. You like that one? So do that 20 minutes every day. You're done. So, you've heard the expression, don't worry, be happy. I'd like to change that a little bit. Don't worry, be grateful. Because so often we get worry thoughts, right? And we know we're not supposed to have them, but how do you replace them? Well, a way to replace them is to start enumerating all the things that you're grateful for. Now, how many of you are grateful for your families? How many people are grateful for their homes? How many people are grateful to live in Hawaii? Great. I'm going to ask you right now to get with one or two people next to you and to share 5 things you're grateful for other than those 3. So you can't say grandkids or kids, So other than your family, your home, and living in Hawaii, what are 5 things that you're grateful for? Go. You got your 5 things? Okay. Now you really know I'm an old hippie. So what are some of the things that you're grateful for? Friends, health. Even if our health isn't perfect, it's good enough, right? Because we're here. You woke up, you're healthy. Other things you're grateful for. Being alive, yes. Pets, yes. Pets give us so much pleasure. Music. What kind of music do you like? You like classical music. Who else likes classical music? What other kinds of music do you like? Jazz. Wow. Anyone? Thank you. So something we can do in the car is play music that helps to calm us or to be positive. And I actually created a positive playlist of songs that I sing along to. And in my book, I've got some suggested songs that you can sing along with. So, like, It's a Perfect Day, for example, is a great song to sing when you want to, get up. So, good. Any other things you're grateful for? Being retired. Good. Trade wins. Wonderful. Being able to travel. Being able to travel. Classes like this. Yes, thank you. Yes. When I was here before and the woman who was blind was here, she said she was grateful for becoming blind as an adult because she met new friends and she had a new profession. I was like, that's the best answer I ever got. And then when I was working with a blind group a couple of weeks ago, somebody said she was grateful for chocolate and wine. And everyone's all, yeah, us too. So whenever we feel worry thoughts, we can flush those away and think positive thoughts, things what we're grateful for, and enumerate those things. Well, I've been told I have to give you homework, and so I have. On page 5 of your materials, let me summarize what we've covered, because I'm going to ask you to make a commitment to do one thing in the next week. So we talked about doing squats, tightening your abs, keeping good posture, stretching your hamstrings while brushing your teeth, balancing, and the vacuum salsa. Mental, we talked about learning. You'll be here next week, but that doesn't count. Flushing out worry, being grateful, sleeping, less news and more music and comedy, affirmations and laughter yoga. Under emotional, we talked about forgiving, walking and talking, smiling, and noticing one thing about your loved one every day that's positive. And under spiritual, we talked about awe, experiencing awe, and guided meditation, and a lot of these other things, breathing, laughter, also are spiritual in nature. And of course, we can always pray or meditate. So write down one thing you're going to do in the next week. Write down when you're going to do it. And write down the name of a person that you're going to commit to doing it, which is going to be the person who's sitting right next to you. And it's okay, you can have 2 commitment partners. If there's 3 of you, that's fine. You can have 2 commitment partners. So take 1 minute to write down what you're going to do when and the name of your commitment partner. All right, does everyone have their one thing? So if you came with your commitment partner, you know where to find them. If you're sitting with someone that you don't know, you've got to track them down next week and say, did you do what you said you would do? I want to leave time for questions, but first I want to finish up. I want to finish up with one last story that illustrates how having a healthy, happy life doesn't take anything extra. Some years ago, my husband's brother was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he moved home to die. You know how sometimes when people have a terminal illness, their personality changes. Throughout his life, he had not always been the easiest person to get along with. But when he was diagnosed, he became the sweetest, kindest, most gentle person you could ever know. He also became pretty much blind and pretty much deaf. One day he said, I don't know why I'm still here. I can't do anything. I can't help anybody, can't help myself. And we said to him, just by being here with your personality, you are doing something. You repaired your relationship with your family. Excuse me. We told him, you repaired your relationship with your family. You're a light to the caregivers who take care of you. The nurses at Queens said they had never had any patient who was so grateful to them for just doing their jobs. When he was in hospice, one night the caregiver asked him if he would like for her to shave his face. And he said yes. She was shaving his face, and she said he was so peaceful and so happy and so grateful. And after she finished shaving him, he said, thank you. And then he died. I thought, wow, if I could live my life, if you could live your life, so that the last words on your lips are thank you. If you could live your life so the first words every morning are thank you. And the words we speak all day are thank you. Then we will know we're living a healthy, happy life. Thank you.